I always believed that the worst betrayals came from strangers. That it was the people you barely knew, the ones who lurked on the fringes of your life, who would ultimately stab you in the back. But I was wrong. So wrong. Because betrayal doesn't come from enemies. It comes from the ones you trust the most. It all started when Emma Carter walked through the doors of Whitman & Co., my mother's prestigious consulting firm. My mother, Eleanor Whitman, had built this company from the ground up, turning it into a powerhouse in the industry. She was known for being ruthless, sharp, and utterly fearless in business. But beneath that hard exterior, she had one fatal flaw-sentimentality. Emma was from Willow Creek, a tiny town my mother used to visit as a child, back when my grandmother still lived there. When my mother heard that this bright-eyed small-town girl was looking for a job in the city, she took it as some kind of sign from the universe. A way to give back. Jessica, she had told me one evening over dinner, swirling her wine, everyone deserves a chance. Just because she doesn't have a fancy degree doesn't mean she isn't capable. I wasn't opposed to it at the time. I had no reason to be. Emma seemed harmless. She was young, mid-20s at most, with wavy chestnut hair, wide green eyes, and a nervous smile that made her look like a deer in headlights. The kind of woman people underestimated. She dressed plainly, spoke softly, and thanked everyone a little too much. The perfect underdog. And I was Jessica Whitman, daughter of Eleanor, married to Daniel Whitman, an ambitious lawyer who charmed his way through life. On paper, I had it all: a loving husband, a powerful mother, and a job where I was respected. I had no idea what was coming. Emma was eager to please. She stayed late, asked endless questions, and quickly became everyone's favorite junior associate. Even when she made mistakes, she had this way of tilting her head and looking apologetic, like a child who just needed guidance. It worked. People loved her, including me. At first, I took her under my wing, teaching her the ropes, offering her advice. I even invited her to a few casual outings, company happy hours, coffee breaks, small networking events. I wasn't just being kind. I believed in her, and she used that belief against me. It was subtle at first. Tiny things, like the way she lingered near Daniel at company events, the way she laughed a little too hard at his jokes, placed her hand lightly on his forearm when she spoke. Little things that I should have noticed sooner, but hindsight is cruel like that. I remember one evening in particular. We were at a company gala, one of those expensive black tie events my mother loved to throw. Emma had arrived wearing a sleek black dress, little too elegant for a junior associate. At the time, I had brushed it off as a young woman wanting to impress the higher-ups. But now, looking back, I remember the way she looked at Daniel across the room, like he was something to be conquered. I should have seen the warning signs. I should have listened when my mother, always sharper than me, pulled me aside that night and murmured, "Keep an eye on that one." But I didn't. I laughed. She's harmless, I had said, and I had no idea just how wrong I was. I had no idea that Emma wasn't just watching my life. She was studying it, and soon, she would try to take everything from me. Hindsight is a cruel thing. Looking back, I can pinpoint the exact moments I should have been suspicious. Tiny shifts, subtle changes, things that should have made me stop and think. But when you trust someone, when you genuinely believe in them, you don't scrutinize their every move, and that's how they win. Emma had been at Whitman & Co. for about 3 months when I started noticing the changes. First, it was her wardrobe. When she first started, she dressed modestly muted tones, loose blouses, nothing flashy. But as time passed, her clothes got sharper, more tailored. Pencil skirts that hugged her figure. Silk blouses that hinted at just enough skin to be suggestive, but not inappropriate. And the strangest part, they looked eerily similar to mine. At first, I found it flattering. She looked up to me. Then it was her speech. She started using my phrases, my mannerisms, even my business strategies. I'd hear her in meetings repeating things I had said weeks ago, almost verbatim, as if they were her own thoughts. People began noticing her more, commending her on her sharp instincts. Still, I brushed it off. Then came Daniel. My husband had always been charming. It was what made him such a great lawyer. He had this ability to make people feel like they were the only one in the room. It was one of the things that drew me to him in the first place. And Emma? She wasn't immune to it. I started noticing how often she gravitated toward him at company functions. How she always seemed to find a reason to talk to him. At first, I ignored it. After all, Daniel was married to me. He wasn't the type to stray. But then I started catching small moments that made my stomach tighten. The way she touched his arm when she laughed at his jokes, the way she stood just a little too close, the way Daniel never seemed to move away. I should have spoken up. I should have asked questions. But I didn't want to be that wife, the insecure, paranoid one who saw problems where there weren't any. And then, his text started. It happened one evening when Daniel was in the shower. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, and I glanced at it without thinking. Emma, you always know just what to say, Emma. Wish I had someone like you on my team. My stomach turned. The messages weren't explicit, but they were inappropriate. They had the tone of something more. I confronted Daniel the second he stepped out of the bathroom. What the hell is this? I demanded, holding out the phone. He barely glanced at the screen before rolling his eyes. Jess, it's nothing. She was just venting about work. I wasn't satisfied. Why is she texting you like this? With winking emojis, he scoffed. It's harmless. She's just young and friendly. Don't read into it. Don't read into it. Those words echoed in my head long after the conversation ended. I wanted to believe him. So I did. I told myself I was overreacting. That Emma was just an admirer, someone who looked up to Daniel the way she looked up to me. But deep down, I knew better. The final warning sign came at one of Eleanor's dinner parties. My mother loved hosting lavish events, gatherings where high-powered executives rubbed shoulders with politicians and celebrities. That night, Emma had somehow managed to get herself invited, and she had transformed. Gone was the nervous small-town girl. In her place stood a woman in a form-fitting emerald dress, with confidence that didn't belong to someone in her position. She was talking to Daniel when I spotted them across the room, and she was whispering something into his ear. I watched. As he smiled, as he leaned in just slightly, I felt my pulse in my throat. I saw red. I walked up, slipping my arm through Daniel's. Something funny? I asked, my voice sweet but firm. Emma looked at me, eyes wide but not guilty. No, she smiled. Oh, nothing important. I was just telling Daniel that if he ever gets tired of law, he'd make an excellent business strategist. The audacity. I didn't let go of Daniel's arm. Instead, I smiled right back. Yes, well, he's quite happy where he is. For the first time, I saw something in her expression shift. She knew that I knew, and I knew that she wasn't going to stop. There's a moment when suspicion turns into certainty. When your gut, your instincts, every red flag you ignored, all come crashing down at once. For me, that moment came on a rainy Tuesday night that shattered my marriage and burned my last shred of trust to the ground. It started with a lie. Daniel had told me he'd be working late at his firm. Another case, another late-night grind. It wasn't unusual. As a lawyer, his hours were unpredictable, and I had always accepted that. But something felt different this time. I don't know why. I found myself pacing our apartment long after dinner, checking the clock every few minutes. He hadn't texted since 7:30. No working late updates, no see you soon. By 10 p.m., my stomach was in knots. Then my mother called. Jessica, she said, her tone clipped, urgent. You need to come to the office, now. The office? I frowned, glancing at the clock. Mom, it's almost 11. What's going on? She hesitated for half a second. Then, it's Emma and Daniel. My heart stopped. I barely remember grabbing my coat, barely remember the cold rain hitting my skin as I hailed a cab. All I knew was the overwhelming, skinking certainty that I was about to confirm the thing I had been desperately trying to deny. I stormed into Whitman & Co., my heels clicking against the marble floors, my hands shaking as I swiped my keycard at the entrance. The office was mostly dark, except for a few dimly lit conference rooms. And then, from the far end of the hall voices, I followed the sound. My breath shallow, my body moving before my mind could catch up. And then I saw them. Through the glass walls of Daniel's private office, Emma was sitting on the edge of his desk, one leg crossed over the other, leaning in far too close. And Daniel? He was standing between her legs, his hands resting on her thighs. The world blurred. I must have made a sound asterisk, a sharp inhale. A gasp. Something asterisk, because they both turned at once. Emma's face didn't even change. She didn't jump away, didn't look guilty or caught. She just smiled. Daniel, on the other hand, looked like a deer in headlights. Jess, I pushed the door open so hard it slammed against the wall. Get your hands off her. Emma didn't move. She just tilted her head, watching me with calm amusement, like she had one. Like I was an inconvenience. Daniel had the nerve to step toward me. Jessica, listen to what? I laughed, but it wasn't humor, was rage. Disbelief. You told me you were working late. This is working late. His mouth opened and closed, but he had no excuse. And Emma? She just shrugged, like it was nothing. Like she wasn't standing there, dressed in a too-tight blouse. Her manicured nails still resting lightly on my husband's waist. Then she spoke. I told you, Jessica. She crossed her legs slowly, deliberately. He was bound to upgrade eventually. I saw red. Get the F*** out, I hissed at her. You're fired. Emma had the audacity to laugh. You don't have the power to fire me. A voice from the hallway cut through the tension. I do. I turned to see my mother standing there, arms crossed, face cold as ice. Eleanor Whitman. CEO, Emma's smirk finally faltered. Eleanor stepped inside, her heels clicking against the hardwood, her eyes sweeping the scene like a queen surveying. Her battlefield. I should have trusted my instincts about you, she told Emma, voice like steel. Pack your things. Security will escort you out. Emma's lips parted slightly, but she knew better than to argue. And Daniel. He was silent. He didn't fight for her. Didn't fight for me either. I turned to my husband, my soon-to-be ex-husband, and whispered, I hope she was worth it. Then I walked away, because I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I always imagined that if I ever caught my husband cheating, I would scream, cry. Throw things that I would explode in a hurricane of rage. But the night I caught Daniel with Emma, I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I burned, not a wildfire that raged uncontrollably, but a slow, simmering inferno that consumed everything in its path. Because the betrayal didn't end in that office. No, that was just the beginning. After Emma was fired, I didn't go home. COULDN single quotes. Instead, I checked into a hotel, turned my phone off, and sat in silence. Let him wonder where I was. By morning, my inbox was flooded with messages. Daniel, Jessica, please talk to me. I can explain. Daniel, I messed up, but it wasn't what it looked like. Nothing happened. Daniel, don't do anything drastic. Let's talk. Nothing happened. Men like him always say that, don't they? Like standing between a woman's legs in a dimly lit office at 11 o'clock at night. Was a perfectly innocent mistake. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because by noon, my mother, Eleanor Whitman, the queen of unforgiving women, had launched her own investigation, and what she found made my blood run cold. Receipts. Dinner reservations under his name at restaurants. I'd never been to hotel bookings on nights he claimed to be working late. A hidden credit card. Ma wasn't the first. She was just the one stupid enough to get caught. The weight of it hit me like a truck. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was who he was, and I had spent years loving a stranger. I sent Daniel divorce papers the next day. I didn't wait for an apology. I didn't wait for closure. I didn't need it. When he showed up at my hotel room, because of course he did, I didn't even let him inside. Jessica, please, he pleaded, standing in the hallway, looking pathetic. We can fix this. I folded my arms. We? His jaw tightened. You're really going to throw away everything we built over this? I laughed. Actually laughed. We didn't build anything, Daniel. I built a life with you while you were screwing your way through town. His face darkened. You don't know the whole story? Then tell me, I challenged. Tell me what part of multiple affairs I misunderstood. Silence. That was the moment I knew I had broken him. I could see it in his eyes, the realization that I was done. He tried again. I love you. I tilted my head. That's unfortunate. And then I closed the door in his face. Emma disappeared after she was fired. For about a month, it was blissfully silent. Then I heard the rumors Chachi had gotten a job at a rival firm, and within weeks, she was chasing another executive. She had moved on to her next victim. And I was about to ensure she never did this again. Emma disappeared after she was fired. For about a month, it was blissfully silent. Then I heard the rumors she had gotten a job at a rival firm, and within weeks, she was chasing another executive. She had moved on to her next victim, and I was about to ensure she never did this again. Emma had landed at Hastings & Co., a rival consulting firm. I wasn't surprised. Well, she was predictable. She had latched on to another powerful man this time. A married executive, she had learned nothing. But, unlike Daniel, this man had a lot more to lose. His wife was on the company's board. His reputation was spotless, and he had no idea the woman in his bed was a career homewrecker. Lucky for him, I was feeling generous. I sent an anonymous email to Hastings & Co. with receipts, Emma's past affairs, her office escapades, the hotel bookings under Daniel's name. I didn't even have to wait long. Within 2 days, Emma was escorted out of the building, fired, blacklisted, and just like that, her climb up the corporate ladder was over. I wish I could say I felt guilty, but I didn't, because Emma wasn't just a mistake. She was a pattern, and I broke it. After I served Daniel divorce papers, his life unraveled fast. The firm he worked for was built on image, prestige, trust, and when word got out about his affairs, clients started pulling out. The partners were furious. A messy divorce? Fine, but a scandal? A liability. They pushed him out. First, they forced him to resign. Then, he lost his best clients. Then, his money started running out. And that's when he called me. I saw his name flash on my phone one afternoon. I let it ring. Then came the text. Daniel, can we meet? Just to talk. Me. Talk about what, Daniel? I made mistakes. I see that now. I miss you, Jess. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I sent my response, me. I wish you the best, Daniel. Truly. But we have nothing left to talk about. And I blocked his number, because I had already moved on. 1 year later, Kay stood at a rooftop party, drink in hand, watching the city lights. I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. I had taken over more leadership roles at Whitman & Co., stepping up alongside my mother. I had reclaimed my life. And Daniel. Last I heard, he was struggling. I could have felt bad for him, but I did, because in the end, he and Emma deserved each other. I raised my glass and toasted to something better. To power. To freedom. To getting rid of dead weight. And for the first time in years, I felt truly free. The funny thing about revenge, once you've burned everything down, once the dust settles and the ashes clear, you have to decide what comes next. For the longest time, I thought my story ended with betrayal. But in reality, it was just the beginning. After Emma was fired from Hastings & Co., she tried to claw her way back. I heard whispers through industry circles she applied to multiple firms, but no one wanted her. Her reputation followed her like a storm cloud. She even tried reaching out to Daniel. That too went nowhere. I don't know where she is now, and honestly, I don't care. She was never the real threat. She was just another symptom of Daniel's disease. The last time I saw Daniel was 6 months after our divorce was finalized. I was at a high-profile gala, representing Whitman & Co., an event we used to attend together, and then I spotted him. He looked different, a little older, a little smaller, a little lost. He wasn't at a VIP table like he used to be. He wasn't charming his way through a room full of executives. He was standing alone, holding a drink. He couldn't afford any more. His firm had never recovered from the scandal. His career was in shambles. For a brief second, our eyes met. I expected bitterness, anger, resentment. But instead, all I saw was regret. I smiled not out of cruelty, but closure then. I turned my back to him and walked away, because Daniel Whitman was nothing to me anymore. Through everything. My mother stood by me. Eleanor Whitman was many things: cutthroat, brilliant, sometimes terrifying. But above all, she was right. She had seen through Emma before I ever did. She had warned me about Daniel before I was ready to listen, and now, sitting across from her at Whitman & Co.'s boardroom, I realized she had never wanted me to be weak. She had wanted me to become the woman I was always meant to be, and I had. She smirked, tapping her manicured nails against her glass of whiskey. Well, she said, taking a sip, I suppose I should thank Emma. She did what I never could. Got rid of your useless husband. I laughed. Because she wasn't wrong. 1 year later, I sat on my apartment balcony, a glass of wine in hand, watching the city lights flicker in the distance, for the first time in a long time. I wasn't thinking about the past. I wasn't looking back. I was looking forward to new opportunities, to new power, to a future where I was no longer someone's wife or someone's fool. Because Jessica Whitman wasn't just a woman scorned. She was reborn, and, in the end, that was the greatest revenge of all. That's the end of today's story. Did things turn out the way you thought, or were there some surprises along the way? Share your thoughts in the comments side. Love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you haven't joined the community yet, now's the perfect time. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you're always the first to catch new stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.